Hi, my name's Al and today I'm going to show you how to set up your rear mech. It's really infuriating when you're out on a ride and your gears don't work properly, but you hardly need any tools to sort it out. Some Allen keys and a Phillips No. 2 screwdriver is pretty much all that you'll require. The tricky bit is knowing what all the adjustments on your rear mech do. Once you know that, making it work properly is easy. Hopefully today I'll be able to explain just how to do that. It's important when you fit a Shimano Shadow or Shadow Plus mech that this small black pin is butted up tight against this little shelf on your rear mech hanger, because it is possible to tighten the mech in place without it touching and it won't work properly. So with the mounting bolt loose, make sure that pin's firmly against the hanger and then tighten it in place. With the mech mounted properly, there's a few other basic things that we need to check. First of all, we need to make sure that the wheel is properly in the dropouts, so loosen it off, pull it up good and hard into the dropouts and tighten the quick release securely. Other things that we need to check before we even start twiddling with the settings on the mech is to ensure that it's all perfectly in line. So the mech has to be straight and the mech hanger also needs to be straight. You can check this easily just by looking at the back of the bike and ensuring that this cage hangs perfectly in line with the sprockets. If it doesn't, either the mech or the hanger or both are bent and you need to get them sorted. You can't really bend a mech straight very successfully, so if it is bent you probably need a new one. If your hanger's bent, you can normally straighten them. If it's really bent, you'll probably need to replace it. Other key preparations are making sure that the mech is properly lubed, so lubricate all the pivots on the mech to make sure that they move freely. And one thing which will play havoc with your gears is make sure that you've got a decent free running cable and it's fitted correctly, so no tight bends in it and a good quality cable. Without that, you're on a hide into nothing. There's three main adjustments on a rear mech. It's best that we deal with these independently. The first adjustment are the limit screws. There's two of these, the high and the low limit screws, and they control the range that the mech can move. So the low limit screw works at this end and the high at this end. It prevents the mech from being able to shift the chain off either end of the cassette. So it's a really important adjustment, but once that's set, you don't need to adjust it again further down the line unless something gets bent. The second adjustment is cable tension. This controls the indexing of the mech, which allows it to move nicely from one sprocket to the other. The third adjustment is B tension. This screw here controls the distance between the upper guide pulley or jockey wheel and the sprockets. Right, so let's get these limit screws adjusted properly. Let's forget about cable tension altogether. The best way to do that is to detach the cable. With the cable detached, we can make those adjustments. So we're currently in top gear. So we're all the way down here on the cassette on the smallest sprocket, which is the highest gear. So it's the high screw that we need to adjust. This is often labelled with an H. If not, have a go and you'll see which one does the business. With your Phillips No. 2 screwdriver, adjust the mech by turning the screw until the cage is perfectly aligned with the sprocket that the chain is sitting on. You'll know if it's set up right or not, because if you push the mech up, the chain should fall nicely onto that final sprocket. And at the same time, you shouldn't be able to pull the chain off that sprocket. So there's no way that's ever going to derail. With the high stop sorted, let's move on to the low. So if you turn the cranks, then manually shift all the way up into first gear. And what we're trying to do is to line up the jockey wheel with first gear. You'll need to apply pressure to the mech to push it up onto the stock. When you're happy, we can test it. The mech should shift easily into first gear, and you shouldn't be able to push the chain over the sprocket and into the spokes. Okay. So that's the stop setup. The mech can travel the full range of the cassette without coming off. So now we're going to sort out the cable tension. Before we start at the mech, then we need to screw the barrel adjuster at the shifter all the way in and then back out the turn. At the mech, undo the clamp bolt. Make sure the cable is routed and sits correctly. Then pull it tight by hand. And clamp it down. Now let's see how our cable tension is. So we're going to shift up one gear. Now that's moved one sprocket, which is obviously what it should have done. And what we're going to do is check for the alignment of this upper guide pulley or jockey wheel with the sprocket that the chain now sits on. We need to make sure that they're perfectly aligned. I can see here that we need a little bit more tension, so I'm just winding the barrel adjuster out so they're perfectly in line. If you have too much tension, then the mech will try and shift onto the next sprocket, so you'll get a chatter. Or if you don't have sufficient tension, then the chain won't make it onto that sprocket. With that perfectly aligned, you should find that the gears index properly across all the gears. Now you see there, the chain is hesitating a little on the way down, so we've got a little bit too much tension there. You can wind that off at the barrel adjuster. Still a bit too much tension. And now we're getting a smooth shift across each sprocket. Now the shifting still isn't quite as good as I'd like, and the B tension adjustment can make a real difference, especially with a Shadow or a Shadow Plus mech. Now with a conventional Shimano derailleur, you want to run in first gear, so the biggest sprocket. You want to be running the jockey wheel, upper jockey wheel or upper guide pulley as close as possible to the sprocket without it making any noise, and that will give you the best shift. With a Shadow or Shadow Plus mech, you want to be about 5 or 6 mil away from the sprocket. Now that adjustment is critical. So we're just going to adjust the B tension screw. You'll see that the mech moves in or out. So I'm just going to adjust that. So we've got about a 5 mil gap. It was a little bit far away, and hopefully now the gears will run real sweet. With all 3 adjustments made, as long as nothing's worn, your gears should now be running spot on. So have a run through them. Just make sure that each single shift corresponds to a single sprocket on the cassette. All working as it should. And you can also check the limit screws once more, just to make sure there's no way that chain's going to derail. And that's it, all done, ready to hit the trails. Thanks for watching, cheers.